Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kari Tarman, and I have quite a few people in here who know me from many phases of life. And if you knew me in high school and college, which I can directly see one, you know that millennial rap dance music is ultimately my favorite kind of music. So while I wasn't sure if it was appropriate, when I said yes to this and was thinking about what my speech was going to be, I really decided I wanted to be authentically me and not hold back. So that is why that's my walk-up song. I also tend to be a little aggressive. So if you give me something, I will be like, let's go, let's get this done. So thank you for being here today. As I was asked to do this, I think my initial inclination was no. I think anytime we're asked to do these things, we think to ourselves, what do we have to offer? How is our story any better or different from other people's? And so as I did say yes, I thought this is really just a year for me to share my story along with 3 other amazing women. And next year, I look forward to hearing your stories as well. So I can't see the screen, but I'm hoping, there we go, a little photo popped up. So I'm originally from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I come from a deep Catholic family where my dad has 11 brothers and sisters, and my mom has 5. This is me at 2 years old visiting my uncle in Colorado. And you can't see the bottom of it, but I'm trying on this huge boot. And I felt like this was an illustration for my life and some of the stories that I'll share today about me constantly probably putting on shoes that my feet don't fit in and waiting for them to grow. And most of the time they have, and sometimes I've failed, and sometimes I haven't, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. I wanted to start with some of my most formative life experiences, and that does begin with going to St. John's Elementary School in Goshen. Yeah, I was one of the first groups of girls to be able to be altar servers, and I remember my mom being very excited that I was going to have opportunities that she didn't have. And one of the earliest lessons I have as an altar server at St. John's was, many of us may remember a man named Roy who used to walk through Goshen with a cart and in a pink shirt. And he used to come into our mass while I was an altar server, and there were 3 of us. And it was really interesting because as soon as he came in the side doors, you could feel the tensions rise. People did not know what to do. There was fear in the air. And in that moment, our priest at the time, Father Ed, he would welcome him. He would specifically stop Mass and address him and say, "Welcome, Roy. Thanks for coming in today." I remember watching parents as he would roam the church. What is he going to do? And in that moment, I remember feeling very curious. I wanted to know his story. I wanted to understand why he was the way he was. And as a kid, I reflect back on believing he was a Vietnam vet. But even then, as a kid, I watched our priests welcome him and greet him and treat him with respect. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life. It was probably the first time where maybe in the moment I didn't recognize it, but as you reflect back on your childhood experiences, I truly learned that curiosity is greater than fear. And so for the rest of my life, I have been very curious. And we'll hear a little bit more about that curiosity, but it really did all start at St. John's, being an altar server and being privileged to have that experience. So as I gained that perspective, I thought, what is the next thing that shaped me? What have I given that I've gained, as that's our theme? And so as I thought about my experiences in life, 4-H, and there's other 4-H people in here, was probably the next formative experience of my life. For 10 years, I was part of the Goshen Go-Getters 4-H Club. And while I gave my time to my club meetings and volunteering and long fair days, what I gained was so much bigger, and even how I operate today, so much stems from my life in 4-H. I learned how to run meetings. I learned how to handle conflict. I learned how to work across multiple generations of people, from an 8-year-old to a 65-year-old woman running our 4-H meetings. And it was so important. I also learned how to take feedback. There's nothing quite like sitting in front of a judge with your cookies at 8 years old being told that they're dry. and that you should have done better. And you had to sit there and take it with a smile on your face and try better next time. And truly, one of the most important experiences of my life. Or my pig. My pig was never good. I couldn't even tell my pig from other people's pigs, and I had to tie a ribbon to his tail. But I do learned quickly that your effort doesn't always equal applause. You're not always the best in the room. And you learn something even more important, and what I learned in 4-H is you're never going to make everybody happy. You could be happy, but you'll learn some great lessons, and I'm really glad I learned that in my teenage years. 4-H taught me that information and feedback's not my identity, it's a way to grow, and that lesson has served me for decades. And if I'm ever having a bad day, and I didn't ask if I could cuss, but by my song, you should go out and shovel some shit. It will make you feel so much better. And still to this day, when I do manual labor to work off frustration, I go back to my 4-H days of washing a pig that doesn't want to listen and has truly shaped me into the person that I am. Later, I became the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college. My parents are both from Wisconsin, and my mom was actually the secretary at our Catholic school, and my dad was a blue-collar worker in a factory, and they knew that they wanted us to experience more. And while my mom couldn't be here today because she's helping my sister, my mom worked 2 jobs to send me to college to make sure that I didn't have a bunch of debt, and she did that for years. And I couldn't be more grateful for that sacrifice. And even in that moment, under our theme, what you give, you gain, I realized when you sacrifice and you give, even if it's not for yourself, you gain so much more. And that's something that I also hope to pay forward someday. So, So as I graduated from college, I thought, what would I choose if no one else had a say in my life? Where could I find that freedom? And what would I do to live an interesting and curious life? That question put me on a plane to Ghana and forever changed my future. As I told you the story of Roy, psychology was always my passion. He started that in me to better understand him as a human and to serve the marginalized population. So I had graduated with my bachelor's in psych and then got on a plane to go to Ghana. I was placed in a refugee camp working with Liberians just south of Accra. And I was assigned to teach safe sex education to Liberian women who were refugees from conflict. By day 2, I stopped teaching it. I remember day 1 feeling slightly appalled that I was put in this situation, and then later that night thinking, do I do what they want me to do, or do I change and do something different? And I decided to do the latter, change and do something different. What I quickly realized was the culture structures and the social dynamics, the realities of our lives here in America, their lives were completely different than me. And in that pivot, I learned one of the greatest lessons of my life. Serving others isn't about imposing what you know, it's about listening. That trip truly changed my life. When we go on mission trips or go to serve others, we often think that we're going to change them. But in the end, they change you. I came back from that never seeing the infrastructure that I took for granted here in America. Clean water, waste management systems, safety structures for women and children. I also was able to walk through what they call slave castles, holding space for what forced me to confront history in America in a way that I'd never had before. And seeing something like that, you come home different and changed. In fact, it also changed my entire career path. I was supposed to go and get my master's and become a psychologist and then my PhD. But part of our work involved women who had survived severe war atrocities, and I realized something about myself. I don't compartmentalize pain well. I want justice. I want to fight to make the world a better place. And that isn't something that you can always deliver because it's not always real. So that awareness was a gain too. So naturally, I decided to stretch myself again. I came home and decided that I wanted to travel to Seoul, South Korea. So I got on a plane by myself. I remember telling my mom that I was doing that, and she said, tell your father, and handed him the phone. Again, I thought I was going to go there and give. I was going to teach children how to speak English, and I was going to change their lives. Instead, I gained an independence that I never knew I needed. I learned how to navigate bus systems and subway lines, how to get lost, how to be in a country where I spoke no Korean other than hello and thank you, how to ask for help. I had to trust so many strangers, and it was one of the best experiences. I also got to see a culture with centuries of recorded history, dynasties that stretch back hundreds of years, and I saw an education system in which 5-year-olds go to a hagwon before they start public school to be fluent in English before they even go to elementary school. And in that, you gain a perspective of what education means in different countries and how it's valued differently. And I realized that based on them, success looks very different for very many people. And then I came home and I gained perspective. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. Probably since 8 years old, I knew that psych was where I thought I wanted to go. And it ended up to not be the case. So I moved to Indianapolis with my now husband. And I was able to meet the vice president of marketing and communications for Goodwill of Central Indiana and get an interview as a marketing assistant. I had no experience whatsoever. The day before, I tried to do something on Photoshop, and it was extremely embarrassing, and I still brought it. And in that meeting, she said to me, I think you have the work ethic that it takes to do this job, and I'm going to do everything that I can to help you, and I'm going to hire you as an assistant. And you're going to just have to listen to other people, and you're going to have to do everything that I tell you. And I said yes. And it's because of Cindy that I am now in the position that I'm in. She gave me every task she could. We had people leave our team. She would just give me their job and be like, figure it out. And it was in that moment I realized I really could figure it out. I could Google it. We have access to so much information. And it's because of her that I am now in this path or in this role that I'm in. So then my husband and I moved back to Goshen, which, if you know me, is probably the last place that I thought I would end up. I am a city girl. Find me in New York City at 11 a.m. walking the streets by myself and feel completely empowered. That's kind of where I thought I was. But my husband's family owns a business here, and he didn't want his dad to sell it, and so I agreed to move back. And in the end, it's such a beautiful place to live. I don't mean any offense when I say this, but living in Indianapolis, I kind of joke, we all live the same lives. We all go to Target on the weekends, no matter where we live. We all go to Costco, or we all go to something, and we live very similar lives. But in Goshen, there's a richness, because when a community is smaller, you actually have the opportunity to get to know each other. And you get the opportunity to get to know different cultures and different ways of life, and there's really nothing more beautiful than that. And so while I've been back in Goshen for 15 years, I think I've been surprised by how much I have enjoyed it. I also think that life takes a lot of intentionality. So while I might not be living in New York City or a place where I thought I would be, I want to be very intentional about the life that I create here in Goshen, which is bringing culture to my life. So this is Giuseppe. My husband and I are 28 years old, and we hosted an exchange student for a full year, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I did not yet have children of my own, so parenting a teenager was hilarious. We would show up at football events. We made him do a sport every semester. He needed to stay busy. And the girls, the social life, the time that I had to show up at a party at midnight and tell him it was time to come home because he didn't understand what the word curfew meant. And in the end, I gained so much understanding of exchange students, his family in Italy, and now this lifelong connection on the other side of the world. You also never know where you might end up when you have exchange students, and somehow we ended up at an Amish home where they were raising bears, and we're bottle feeding bears. So there's culture everywhere in this community, and I'm really grateful for it. Now I have children of my own. That is my husband, Justin. The oldest is Fordham, and the 3-year-old is August. And that is the house that I will be selling tomorrow. So new journeys await. I've lived downtown Goshen for 11 years and thoroughly have enjoyed it, but bought that house before I had kids. And once again, I gave so much to that house, and I have gained so much from it, more than I've ever given. If anyone wants to talk about the best strategies for stripping paint, please let me know. And it will go on to the next owners who will take care of it. Also, if you would have told me that I was going to have 2 boys, I would have said, no way. I was prepared to raise Icebox from Little Giants. I was going to raise this powerhouse girl who was going to play sports and maybe even like play on the boys' team. And I was very aggressive when I was a kid and used to foul out at every basketball game. And I was going to have this fierce daughter. But as I get older, and as we're at this women's luncheon today, and we learn things, I have now decided that this path for me in life, this world doesn't just take women, it takes good men. Men who are our allies, men who themselves don't have to live in a box and are able to express themselves in ways that maybe they haven't. And as I raise these little boys, I have gained so much from stretching myself beyond measure. And I hope that I give them the tools to go out into the world and be good men and see them be good partners. And while it's completely different than how I imagined raising children, it's beautiful all the same. So for me, as I look through life, here's a picture of me stripping paint at my house and finding gold leaf and almost having a mental breakdown as I tried to strip plaster molding. Time passes anyways. So it's very important to just keep doing the projects because 3 years will pass and you could have done nothing, but you also could have accomplished something big. So as I go through my life, I'm always looking and searching for women who are braver than I am, who speak out, who take fear and worry, and they actually create action to make the world a better place. It's to find role models at every stage of life who have created their own path that hasn't always been straight. And I'm lucky to have like that in my life, both here and now, even nationally, as I serve in my new role as the director of the Hesburgh Women of Impact program at the University of Notre Dame. At the university, Notre Dame did not go co-ed until 1972. And so you can imagine that the women I work with were 1 out of 110 people in a class. They were the first. They were the first to go to law school. They were the first to graduate with engineering degrees. They were the first to attend Notre Dame as women. And it's really meaningful work. Before this, I worked for our local community mental health center for 10 and a half years. And so I would say if I had 2 passions in life, one would be mental health, and the other would be supporting women and helping them thrive. So today, I get to help ensure that young women have the financial support to say yes to Notre Dame. Over 50% of Notre Dame students are on complete financial aid packages. And I don't think everyone knows that. I think oftentimes you think of Notre Dame and you think of a certain group of people. We are first generation South American, and it is my job to get women to donate money to financial aid packages specifically for female students. And it's powerful. I get to work with women who tell stories that they used to buy clothes that were 4 sizes too big so they didn't get rated as they walked through the lunchroom. And now they take that story to create a better life for others. And it's really important and special that I get to help facilitate those connections. In addition, I get to help create mentorship programs. I get to take the women who are in my Hesburgh Women of Impact group and match them with undergraduate students who have similar interests. Watching those relationships thrive and having students learn from the women who created space for them is extremely special. So now, as I think about maybe the next 4 years of my life, I kind of want to stop asking, what can I achieve? And I want to ask something different. What do I want to learn? What perspective am I missing in life? What would be fulfilling to me? And what can I give that would help me better understand someone else's life? Because that curiosity that I had as an altar server has never left. Instead, I can gain insight. And when you have that courage, you grow. And when women invest in women, we all rise. So, as we celebrate Women's History Month and coordinating this luncheon, thank you. I feel that life is truly a journey of giving and gaining. The question that I'm asking myself is, what do you want to gain next, and what are you willing to give to get there? Thank you.